Hey guys, so today I'll be dropping two tools in one day. They're both built around the same tool, and this is actually a reconstructed new version of an indicator that was previously released that was extremely popular. I think this version should be even more popular, personally, because I think it's more functional, a lot more usable, but it'll be released under a new indicator purely because the code is so significantly different and the features that will be built into this will be so different that I didn't want to take away the old code base in case anyone preferred that one. I've done that with Spacetime Remastered, significantly different code base, and people still kept Spacetime Advanced. But this one will be replacing OI Profile Pro, and then we'll be releasing OI Profile Remastered. So OI Profile Remastered, what is it? Well, it's quite simply a profile which is using open interest data to create the profile itself. I was the first person to do this on TradingView, and so I decided, you know what, it's better to make an update and remake the whole script so we can advance the technology even further. This version hasn't got all the new features that we want to add with Cuban's Edge, but there will be significant overhaul to the features offered soon as well. So as you can see, it's quite different to the old one. If you don't remember the old one, you could just go check out my TradingView page, just Spaceman BCC on TradingView and Twitter as well. But yeah, we'll dig deep into this one and what it is. And the other version is OI Profile Composites. It's going to be just like my Spacetime Composites, where if you load up the tool, so let's load it up. OI Profile Composites. Maybe it's Composite. There we go. Oh, yeah, this one. So we just load it up and then turn this one off. And it's going to ask me to choose a time, so I'm going to choose just a random time. Let's do it there, and let's do here. And yeah, it's just like that. You can just draw your composite zones and it will create you an OI profile. How cool is that? Now it also gives you liquidation levels, and the best part is you can, if you do not wish to, you can also disable the extend levels. So it's pretty useful. I think it's very cool, but we're going to go into the rest of it now, and all the other features. Just had to get this out of the way for the start and end time composite creation tool. Alright, so what changed about this one that it merited a different code base and a different release? Well, the old version was significantly slower, but it had a different method for calculating the high value nodes, and this new method is so significantly different that I didn't want to replace that for members who wish to keep the old one. This one is faster and it gives you a lot more customizability. So here you can see a delta open interest profile, and this is the default features. This one doesn't do automatic tick size or anything just yet. It's more of like a pro tool, and I intend for it to be used in such way, but I want people to be able to customize it and go in thinking, okay, this is how I use an OI profile, and there will be a tutorial on how to use this next week, like actually how to use it. So we're gonna go and change the tick size to 20 just so you guys can see a little bit more clarity maybe. I prefer lower tick sizes, but I'm just giving you guys an example, and you can see like the text come up and stuff like that, right? But you know, I'm gonna put it back down to 10 just because that's how I prefer it. I just wanted to give you guys a look at the text. It is there, so we're gonna drop that down. Text is obviously customizable with text, font also customizable. Along to the side, while we're talking about text, you can see the liquidation levels that are pre-calculated, so they give you genuine targets for your trades, as well as opportunities for reversion. You know, when people get liquidated, we can often move away from their liquidation in the direction they wished for the trade to go, so on and so forth. And so, example, let's put this offset to 10, and it's just gonna obviously move to the right. And then you can just disable that if you don't like them, if you think it's too messy as well. Pretty cool. The other main customizable feature is this ability to choose your display as well as your high value node type. The old one was locked down. This one, let's say you prefer the display of negative OI for some reason. Let's say you prefer that, and you have a reason to choose positive high value node. You can actually, and this is another thing that I'll get into, you can actually have a completely different display to a completely different way of calculating the high value node. Now, for the positive and negative high value node calculations, you will get a value, so a similar to a volume profile and a TPO profile, a value area. You'll get an OI value area, but because the display is separate, you can actually choose what you choose to display. So now how I prefer to use it is going positive, and either positive display or delta display. Now, I included negative just in case someone else can experiment and find other use cases. I personally won't be using it that way. I personally would prefer delta and positive modes. And so why do I think this is actually quite useful? So in my opinion, this ability to do a profile based off an open interest is more useful because it shows the real interaction points at which trades are actually open in comparison to a volume profile, right? You can actually see a combined total of trade interaction here, whereas volume profile is not necessarily showing you that, right? So in my opinion, it gives a more accurate representation as to what's going on inside the candles and inside the session of your trades. So I think it's a little bit more accurate. I think from some testing that I found it actually more useful as well. But yeah, that's like the main thing. It's this ability to separate your display function and your high value node function and choose which one you prefer. I think high value node for positive and delta can be very useful. I'm leaning towards the edge of positive, but that's namely just because the delta variant doesn't come with a value calculation. That's because for the delta one, I wanted to keep it a little bit more simple, a little bit more straightforward, give people a look at just where the highest positive open interest is at the time of its calculation, right? And then beyond that, it's just not doing much else. It's not trying to give you a value. It's just straightforward. It's like, okay, the delta here is the most positive, so we're just going to draw out the delta with this in mind, the POC with this in mind. But yeah, personally I prefer the positives, and I don't mind actually looking at the delta for like where most people have closed and where most people is open. One thing I like and what's quite simple about using this is similar to a volume profile, is where there's the greatest positive positioning being opened in that session, you can expect support and resistance. And then there's other things that I want to get into, but I'm gonna wait until next week's video. But yeah, this is the newest release. It's OI Profile Remastered. I think a lot more people find it usable. Another beautiful thing about this one, and a thing I didn't have in the old one, and another reason for me to separate it as well, was the fact that the liquidations now track alongside the data. So it's not as quotation marks neat, but it's a lot more usable, because now when you look at history, you can see at that present period of time, how did price react to the level? Because the old one, the levels would move, so at the end of the profile is where the liquidations were at the end of the profile. So for example, if you had a 10x liquidation here, let me make that white, a 10x liquidation here, that meant it was 10x liquidation at this point of the profile. So if price ever did come up there and interact with it, it may have not been liquidations there. It may have been here at the time of price interacting with it. So it wasn't as usable, and you couldn't backtest with it as well. With this one, I find it significantly more useful to have it with all these lines, but not everyone will, and it's not as neat. So I didn't want to take that away from everyone. I was just like, you know what, if you're not interested in the backtesting and all you care about is the lines and how neat it looks, you can use the old one and just let it run, and you'll be able to see the reactions in real time because you're trading the real time chart. So it's still useful, but for backtesting and stuff, I think this one's better. The other thing is as well, you can obviously customize what liquidation levels you're showing. I've left 100x off by default, just because when I'm using the positive one, I think there's too much going on. So I prefer leaving the 100x off and then having the value. But you can obviously choose to customize that how you wish, so you could disable the value and have the 100x on instead. It's totally up to you, totally whatever you prefer. I'm definitely a firm believer in the value in this is fucking awesome. Recommend trying it, and then the other liquidation levels are perfectly fine. On that note, guys, hope you have a good one. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to giving you guys a tutorial on how to use it soon.